Without valid certification, ships are not allowed to sail from port. It's a criminal offence for a captain to leave port knowing that their certificates are out of date. A certificate is proof that the vessel complies with marine legislation. Each piece of legislation generally references either a certificate or a document of compliance. Once a vessel has undergone a survey where the ship's compared to the requirements of the legislation, they're issued with a certificate or a document. The document can then be presented to port state inspectors as and when they board the ship. The master can then prove that their vessel is in compliance with the required legislation. In order to keep certificates valid, the ship must undergo regular surveys. Surveys are carried out by the vessel's flag state. This is the country where the vessel is registered to. Surveyors will board the vessel and compare it to the requirements of the legislation. There are 5 different types of ship surveys to be aware of. Initial surveys, the first time the ship is reviewed against the legislation. Renewal surveys, when the expiry date of the certificate is approaching and the document needs to be renewed. Annual surveys, typically these are required for certificates valid for 5 years. Annual surveys carried out each year between issue and expiry. Intermediate surveys, again, typically carried out for certificates valid for 5 years. These are carried out at the midway point, either on year 2 or 3, in place of one of the annual surveys. And finally, if a ship were to be issued with a major nonconformity or undergo a change, they may be subject to a special or an additional survey. When we look at certificates that are valid for 5 years but subject to annual survey, we need to introduce the term anniversary date. Anniversary date is the day and the month the same as the expiry date of the certificate. Annual surveys must be carried out within a window that opens 3 months before and closes 3 months after the anniversary date each year. Renewal surveys must be carried out within the 3 months leading up to the expiry date shown on the certificate. A new document can then be issued in place of the old with a new expiry date. The expiry date on the new document will have the same day and month as the previous. We add in the fact that some of these surveys can only be carried out with the ship out of water in a dry dock. We can see how important it is for the ship's captain and the ship's operators to know exactly what surveys are required when in order to plan effectively. Without this, a ship could find itself needing to dry dock in the middle of a busy season.